or lack thereof. And it's emblematic of the crisis around the country when it comes to these issues. I mean, the funding for mental health and intellectual disability, support services, and addiction treatment, it is catastrophic against the demand and the need out there. You know, I'm before you by default because as an accident of this crisis in political advocacy. When I went to Washington, I wanted to continue the work I had done in the state legislature in Rhode Island. And when I was in Rhode Island, I got to co-sponsor parity. And since we're a really blue state, you know, parity is no big deal. You know, I had a General Assembly of 100 members, and I was lucky if I made it in the top third of the number of members that co-sponsored the bill, because you know that was how many people wanted to improve the lives of their fellow citizens, their brothers and sisters with these illnesses and so forth. And so when I got to Washington, I thought, well, geez, you know, it's 435 members of Congress. I'll be lucky if I make it in the top half of the sponsors, you know, because I was accustomed to going up to the clerk and, you know, what bill do you want to sponsor? This is the bill. Okay, we'll put your name in. So I came from the smallest state in the country, and I was the youngest member of Congress. So I naturally thought I'm the lowest guy on the totem pole. And if you want to be, you know, a big shot in Washington, you got to wait around a couple of decades, at least. I mean, your hair's got to be really gray, or you have to have no hair whatsoever, right, Mark? I mean, you can't do anything until you've achieved that status. So it's kind of the reason why my late father got to sponsor so many important pieces of legislation, because he was in the United States Senate for nearly 50 years. He was chairman of the Labor, Health, and Human Services and Pensions Committee. Talk about covering the domestic waterfront. He had it all under his jurisdiction. So you can imagine my surprise when I asked around the clerk and others, you know, who's sponsoring parity? I want to be a co-sponsor. And the response I got back was, well, Congressman Kennedy, if you want to be the sponsor, you can do it. And I'm like, wait a second here. There must be some confusion. There's got to be tons of more senior members than me who want to sponsor this. I'm sure it's a mistake. But of course, the only mistake in all of this was that I got to put my name first on a bill that said basically that the brain was part of the body. I mean, that's what the bill said. It said you couldn't treat any illness of the brain any differently than any other organ of the body. Really radical idea. That any illness of the brain, you know, you couldn't have any higher copay, deductible, premium, or, you know, lifetime cap. Couldn't be any difference in any of it. That's what the bill said. You wouldn't think this would be such a hard sell. And yet, my great friend Jim Ramsden and I were in the vineyards out there trying to pass it for years and years and years, as was Pete Domenici and Paul Wellstone, God rest his soul, years working on this. And it wasn't until 2008 when we finally got the bill passed. Yeah, it's worth it.